the damage that should have sent them home. April 17th, 1943. 26,500 feet above Bremen, Germany. The cold is the first thing you feel. It creeps through wool gloves and leather boots, finds the seams in heated suits, numbs fingers wrapped around steel and plexiglass. Frost feathers across the inside of the nose turret as First Lieutenant Robert Hale squints through the gun sight of his B-17F Flying Fortress, serial number 41 to 24,512, call sign Lucky Lady. Below them, Bremen burns. Black flak bursts punch upward through the thin cloud layer. Each explosion a brief, violent bloom, rocking the bomber formation like a passing wave. The interphone crackles with clipped voices. Engine temperatures, airspeed, formation spacing. Everything still sounds routine, but the routine is about to end. At 9:42 hours, the first shell hits. It comes from below and slightly aft. A dull, concussive thump shudders through the airframe, followed by the shriek of tearing aluminum. The Fortress lurches to port. In the cockpit, Captain James Walker fights the yoke as warning lights flicker on the instrument panel. Number 3 engine is losing oil pressure. Before anyone can finish reporting it, a second burst detonates closer. Plexiglass shatters in the waist section. Cold air floods in like a living thing. Sergeant Frank Miller, waist gunner, feels the aircraft kick and instinctively presses himself flat against the fuselage as shrapnel sighs past where his head was a moment earlier. The interphone erupts. Flak damage. Right wing. Hydraulics are sluggish. Walker does not look back. He cannot afford to. The formation is tight, staggered boxes of silver bombers stretching for miles. Breaking out now means isolation. Isolation means death. Lucky Lady is no longer whole. A jagged hole the size of a door yawns open along the starboard side. Control cables shudder with uneven tension. The bomber is wounded, and every man aboard knows it. Then comes the fighters. High and fast, out of the sun, Messerschmitt Bf 109s roll in pairs, black crosses flashing on their wings. The first pass is clean and disciplined. Cannon shells rake through the tail of the formation. A Fortress 2 positions ahead erupts in flame, slips backward, and vanishes into cloud. Tail Gunner Staff Sergeant Lewis Grant watches the sky through vibrating glass. He sees the fighters lining up again. He also sees something else. They are turning toward Lucky Lady. A damaged bomber is bait. The German pilots know it. Smoke stains trail faintly from the right wing. The Fortress is lagging by a few precious miles per hour. To an interceptor, it looks like a guaranteed kill. Walker hears Grant's voice, steady but tight. Fighters coming in, 6 o'clock high. Walker glances at his co-pilot, Lieutenant Arthur Knox. Knox is pale but focused. Neither man says the obvious. They could drop out. They could dive, try to limp home alone, hope clouds or luck intervene. Instead, Walker makes a decision that will define the next hour of their lives. He holds formation. Lucky Lady inches back into position, engines straining, propellers biting thin air. The bomber settles into the box, guns overlapping with those of the Fortresses around her. The men aboard feel the tension shift. Staying means more attacks. Staying also means fields of fire. The first fighter commits. Grant squeezes the trigger. Twin .50 caliber machine guns chatter, tracers arcing upward in a tight stream. At the same moment, the top turret opens up, followed by the ball turret beneath the belly. A crossfire snaps shut where the German pilot expects a weak, isolated target. The Messerschmitt jerks violently, smoke streaming from its engine. It breaks off, spiraling downward, gone. The sky fills with noise. The concussion of guns. The whine of diving fighters. The sharp smell of cordite mixing with cold oxygen. Sergeant Miller drags himself back to his waist gun, blood running down his sleeve from a cut he does not remember receiving. He sees another fighter lining up, nose pointed straight at the hole in the fuselage. Miller fires until the barrels glow, walking his tracers up the enemy aircraft. Pieces shear off the German's wing. The fighter snaps sideways and vanishes past the tail. Inside the cockpit, Walker feels the Fortress shudder again. Another hit, but less severe. The bomber is hurt, bleeding speed and altitude, but she is still flying. And something else becomes clear. The fighters keep coming for them. Lucky Lady looks like the weakest link in the chain, but she is no longer just a wounded bomber. She is anchored in the center of converging guns, every approach angle covered by overlapping fire. Each enemy pilot who commits believes he has found an easy kill. Each one is wrong. Walker glances at the altimeter, then back to the formation. He tightens his grip on the yoke. If the Germans want a trap, he thinks they can have one. The hunters commit. The Germans do not break off. They adjust. At 26,000 feet, the air is thin and unforgiving. Engines scream at the edge of their tolerances as the Messerschmitt pilots climb again, circling wide, reassessing the formation. Lucky Lady still trails by a fraction, her wounded wing forcing Walker to hold a touch of rudder just to keep station. From a distance, she looks vulnerable. From inside the box, she is anything but. Captain Walker keeps his eyes forward. He knows the pattern. The first attacks test the defenses. The next ones are deliberate. The interphone clicks. Navigator Second Lieutenant Harold Pierce reports their position with a shaking pencil, knuckles white as the table vibrates. Bomb bay doors remain closed. They are still minutes from the release point. Leaving now would mean jettisoning their bombs, aborting the mission, admitting failure. Walker has no intention of doing that. At 9:51, the second wave hits. This time they come head-on. The nose of Lucky Lady fills with motion as two Bf-109 scream straight toward them, propellers spinning into silver discs. Lieutenant Hale tracks the lead fighter through the northern sight. He waits longer than instinct tells him to, until the German aircraft swells in his vision, until he can see the pilot's canopy and the flash of muzzle fire. Then he squeezes. The nose guns hammer, the recoil vibrating through Hale's shoulders and teeth. Tracers slam into the oncoming fighter. The Messerschmitt shatters, pieces ripping away in a spray of metal and smoke. It passes beneath the bomber in fragments. The second fighter pulls up hard, climbing directly into the arc of the top turret. Sergeant William Crow fires a sustained burst. The German aircraft rolls, smoke pouring from its engine, and dives away, trailing flame. The attack lasts seconds. The silence afterward feels heavier than the noise, but does not last. From the right, Focke-Wulf 190s slash in at high speed, cannon shells ripping through the airspace between bombers. One Fortress off Lucky Lady's starboard side takes a direct hit in the cockpit. It snaps out of formation, nose dropping, spinning slowly as men bail out into the thin blue sky. Sergeant Grant watches it fall. He forces his eyes back to his sights. There is no time for grief. Another FW-190 turns toward Lucky Lady, lining up from low 6 o'clock, aiming for the damaged section of fuselage. Grant and Miller fire together, their streams of tracers converging. The fighter absorbs the punishment for a heartbeat too long. Its tail disintegrates. The aircraft tumbles end over end, vanishing into cloud. Inside the fortress, the damage accumulates. Hydraulic pressure drops further. The bomb bay indicator flickers erratically. Oxygen lines hiss somewhere aft. The temperature plummets. Frost creeps across exposed skin. Flight engineer Technical Sergeant Daniel Brooks crawls forward, shouting over the interphone that the right wing spar has taken a hit but is holding. For now. Walker nods, though Brooks cannot see him. For now is enough. The German pilots are learning, but not quickly enough. They see a bomber that refuses to fall behind, that remains stubbornly inside the protective geometry of the box. They also see a concentration of fire that punishes every straight-in approach. So they change tactics again. High side attacks. From above and offset, fighters roll inverted and dive steeply, trading altitude for speed. Cannon rounds slam into the formation like thrown hammers. Lucky Lady takes another hit, this one tearing through the radio compartment. Sparks fly. The radio goes dead. Walker feels the aircraft sag. Airspeed bleeds off. He pushes the throttles forward, engines roaring in protest. Hold together, he murmurs, not sure if he is speaking to the crew or the machine. A diving fighter flashes past the cockpit, close enough that Hale sees the pilot's face. The ball turret gunner, Staff Sergeant Joseph Alvarez, tracks it instinctively. His guns chatter upward. The fighter shudders, smoke erupting from its wing root, and disappears downward. The men aboard Lucky Lady begin to understand what is happening. The Germans are fixated. Every pass bends toward the damaged bomber. Every pilot believes he is seconds away from finishing her. Each attack draws more fighters into the same lethal envelope of fire. The fortress is bleeding, but she is also killing. By 10:05, the sky around the formation is littered with falling aircraft. Some burn. Some spin silently. The escorts are still too far away to intervene. For this stretch of sky, it is bomber versus fighter alone. Walker glances at the clock. Bomb release is imminent. The fortress shudders again, but she holds altitude. The bombs are still aboard. The formation remains intact. Lucky Lady has not become a liability. She has become a magnet, and the Germans are still coming. The trap tightens. At 10:12 hours, the flak thickens again. Black bursts blossom ahead of the formation as Bremen's outer defenses reach up with renewed fury. Lucky Lady flies straight into it, the damaged wing shuddering as near misses punch the air into solid walls. The bomber jolts violently. Loose equipment skitters across the floor. Someone curses. Someone laughs, a sharp, brittle sound that surprises even him. "Bomb run," Walker announces. His voice is flat, controlled. In the nose, Hale hunches over the Norden sight, blocking out everything except the crosshairs drifting toward the target complex below. Factories, rail lines, smoke already rising from earlier waves. The fortress holds steady, a miracle of discipline and muscle memory, holding a crippled aircraft straight and level under fire. The fighters sense the moment. They surge in again, determined now, aggressive, closer than before. Ammunition counters drop. Barrels glow dull red. The air around Lucky Lady becomes a funnel of converging tracers. A Messerschmitt dives from high 2 o'clock, cannon flashing. Rounds punch into the left wing, tearing fabric and metal. Brooks shouts another damage report, his voice hoarse. The wing still holds. Barely. The fighter does not pull away in time. Top turret fire catches at mid-climb. The aircraft lurches, then disintegrates in a flash of orange and black. Debris rattles against the fortress like hail. Another fighter comes straight up from below, using the blind spot under the nose. Alvarez tracks it, legs braced, hands numb inside heated gloves. He fires in short, disciplined bursts. The enemy aircraft staggers, nose pitching wildly, then slides past beneath the bomber trailing smoke. The trap is working because it is simple. Lucky Lady is wounded enough to invite attack, but not wounded enough to fall out of formation. The German pilots commit harder, closer, believing that one more pass will finish her. Each commitment brings them into overlapping fire from 6, sometimes 8 heavy machine guns at once. Walker knows this cannot last forever. Ammunition is finite. The airframe is exhausted. But for these minutes, the balance has shifted. Bombs away. The fortress lifts abruptly as thousands of pounds of ordnance drop free. Hale calls the release, his voice tight with relief and disbelief. Below, the target disappears under rolling explosions, shockwaves rippling through smoke and flame. Formation begins its turnout. This is the most dangerous moment. The German fighters surge again, desperate now to punish the bombers as they withdraw. Lucky Lady, lighter but still wounded, struggles to keep pace. Walker eases her through the turn, careful not to overstress the damaged wing. A Focke-Wulf flashes in from the left, firing wildly. Rounds tear through the way section. Miller is thrown backward, his gun ripped from his hands. He slams into the fuselage, gasping, vision narrowing. He drags himself upright again, blood soaking his flight suit, and reaches for the spare ammunition box. Grant in the tail sees another fighter lining up. He fires until the guns click dry. The fighter presses on. Crow swivels the top turret, picking up the target. His burst is perfectly timed. The German aircraft explodes in a brief, violent flash. The interphone crackles with overlapping voices. Ammo low. Oxygen leak. Control response sluggish, but manageable. And still, Lucky Lady flies. By now, the Germans have lost patience. Their attacks lose coordination. Individual pilots break off early. Others overcommit and die for it. The airspace behind the formation clears, slowly, unwillingly. When the fighters finally disengage, it feels unreal. The silence is broken only by the steady, uneven drone of engines and the hiss of leaking oxygen. The men aboard the Fortress take stock in fragments. Wounds are dressed. Ammunition belts are checked. No one speaks for long. Walker stares at the horizon. They are turning west, toward home. Escort fighters will meet them soon, if the schedule holds. But the Fortress is still in danger. Fuel is leaking. Control cables are frayed. The damaged wing vibrates at certain speeds. One more failure could still doom them. Behind them, the sky is empty. Ahead, hundreds of miles of hostile airspace remain. Lucky Lady has sprung the trap and survived the kill zone. Now she must survive the journey home, holding together over enemy ground. At 10:28 hours, the first friendly fighters appear. Silver flashes cut across the sky as P-47 Thunderbolts slide into position above the battered bomber stream. The escorts rock their wings, a silent promise that the worst may be over. For the men aboard Lucky Lady, it feels like a breath they have been holding since Bremen. But damage does not care about promises. As the formation settles into its westward course, the strain on the Fortress becomes more apparent. Without bomb weight, the aircraft wants to climb, but the wounded wing resists. Walker trims constantly, easing pressure off the control surfaces, coaxing the bomber forward rather than forcing her. In the radio compartment, smoke curls from scorched wiring. The set is dead. They cannot report their condition. They cannot call for help if something else goes wrong. They are on their own inside the formation. Brooks crawls back again, inspecting the right wing route. He reports that the vibration is increasing. Metal fatigue is setting in. The spar is holding, but every minute at cruising speed eats away at its margin. Walker considers dropping altitude. Lower would reduce stress. Lower would also expose them to more flak. He keeps them where they are. Below, German territory slides past in a cold, indifferent panorama. Rivers twist through fields. Roads carry tiny black specks of traffic that seem impossibly peaceful compared to the violence above them. The Fortress limps on, one engine slightly rough, another running hot. Inside, the crew is quiet now. Miller sits against the fuselage, arm bandaged, eyes half closed but alert. Grant flexes numb fingers, working life back into them. Alvarez remains curled in the ball turret, refusing to climb out until they are safely over the North Sea. Every man listens to the aircraft. A new vibration, a change in pitch, a shudder that might mean nothing or everything. At 10:41, flak reaches up again from a smaller battery. Sporadic, inaccurate, but enough to tighten throats. One burst rocks Lucky Lady, punching another ragged hole near the tail. Grant feels the concussion through the turret and instinctively checks his guns. Still operational. Walker exhales slowly. Not yet. The escorts peel away in shifts, fuel running low. One by one, the Thunderbolts drop back, leaving the bombers to finish the crossing alone. The formation stretches, loosens slightly as damaged aircraft struggle to maintain speed. Lucky Lady is no longer the slowest. Two bombers fall behind and begin to lose altitude. Walker watches them until cloud swallows them whole. He does not know if they make it. At last, the coastline appears. The North Sea is a dull, slate gray beneath scattered cloud. The sight of water brings a strange mix of relief and dread. If the Fortress fails now, at least there is a chance. Cold, narrow, unforgiving, but a chance. Walker noses the bomber down a few hundred feet. The vibration eases slightly. Brooks reports marginal improvement. It will have to do. The crossing feels endless. Ice builds on the damaged wing. The engines drone. The men take turns tapping each other's shoulders, keeping watch, keeping awake. No one relaxes. Not yet. Finally, land rises ahead again. England. The fortress crosses the coast, trailing scars and smoke stains, her silhouette unmistakable even from a distance. Ground controllers cannot hear them. They follow visual signals, slotting into a loose pattern with other survivors of the raid. Walker lowers the landing gear. The right gear hesitates, then locks with a heavy clunk. A collective breath escapes the crew. Runway in sight. Lucky Lady descends, slow and careful, every correction measured. The damaged wing threatens to drop, but Walker counters gently, refusing to fight the aircraft harder than necessary. The wheels touch. The landing is rough, bouncing once, twice, then settling. Brakes squeal. The fortress rolls to a stop amid a swarm of emergency vehicles. Only when the engines wind down does the reality sink in. They made it. The cost and a lesson. When the engines finally fall silent, the world rushes back in. The smell hits first. Burnt oil, hot metal, cordite baked into aluminum. Ground crews swarm Lucky Lady, staring openly at the holes punched through her skin, at the warped wing, at the scorched plexiglass. One mechanic runs a hand along the torn fuselage and shakes his head slowly. That bird should not have made it back. Walker stays in his seat for a moment longer, hands resting on the yoke, as if afraid that letting go will make the aircraft vanish. Then he unbuckles and stands. His legs feel weak. He does not remember standing up during the flight. The crew gathers on the tarmac in small, uneven clusters. Miller is helped down, pale but upright. Grant stretches his back, wincing. Alvarez climbs out of the ball turret last, stiff and silent, blinking at the daylight as if seeing it for the first time. Medical orderlies move in. Wounds are checked. Names are called. One by one, answers come back. Everyone is there. In the operations hut, intelligence officers begin counting. Enemy fighters destroyed. Probables. Damage sustained. Walker answers questions in a calm, even voice, but his mind keeps replaying the sight of fighters committing again and again, drawn to the wounded fortress like moths to flame. The debrief takes hours. Photographs of Lucky Lady circulate across the base by evening. Crews gather around them, tracing fingers along the ragged holes, the bent wing, the patched-over nose. The story spreads fast. A damaged bomber that stayed in formation. A crew that refused to peel away. Fighters that paid for the mistake of believing weakness meant helplessness. There is no celebration, only exhaustion and a quiet, sobering understanding. In the weeks that follow, the lesson hardens into doctrine. Damaged bombers are no longer automatically ordered to drop out if they can still hold position. Crews learn to recognize when a wounded aircraft can serve as a focal point of fire rather than a liability. Gunners are trained to expect repeated attacks on the weakest-looking ship and to exploit that expectation. Lucky Lady is repaired, patched, and returned to service. She flies again, scars still visible beneath fresh paint. Each new crew that passes her on the line knows her story, whether officially told or not. For Walker and his men, the memory never fades. They remember the cold, the vibration in the wing, the moment when staying seemed more dangerous than leaving. They remember the sky filled with attackers and the realization that the enemy was making the same assumption over and over again. On that morning over Bremen, a bomber that should have been prey became a trap. Not because of luck, because a crew understood the geometry of survival, trusted each other, and made a decision that turned damage into strength.